The next two questions people always ask when I tell them I live overseas are, how did you find a place to live, and do you feel safe? And somehow those questions always come together in a pair in the same breath. Let's start with housing. Honestly, finding a place to live depends entirely on the school and the country. Sometimes schools provide housing. Sometimes they give you the name of a realtor and basically say, good luck. But I've never arrived somewhere and had absolutely no support. There are always people helping new teachers get settled. Over the years, I've had some memorable apartments. In Qatar, I worked with a realtor and ended up signing 12 rent checks at once, one for every month of the year. I remember sitting there thinking, what have I just done? Then I got back to the apartment and had a full breakdown. Turns out it became one of my most favorite apartments ever. It was huge, quirky, and I loved it. In Singapore, I picked an apartment because other teachers lived there. It was nice, but honestly a little too modern for me. In Cambodia, I ended up living in a hotel near school. Convenient? Yes. Cozy? Not really. Everything was beige. China gave me several different apartments. One was factory housing where I found my dog Beanie. Another was tiny and strange, so I moved closer to friends, restaurants, and a mall. My Beijing apartment was great for walking my dog, but it was packed with furniture I couldn't get rid of. And my final apartment there was lovely, except for the constant construction happening on the building. Now I'm in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. I've had a roommate during my first year here, but this week I'm moving into my own apartment right next door, and I'm ridiculously excited about having more space. Now let's talk about the safety question. I always find this question interesting. Safe in what way? Because one country where I often don't feel particularly safe is in the United States, yet nobody asks me about my safety when I go there. I've lived in multiple countries and I've honestly never felt unsafe in my day-to-day life. The only time safety ever crossed my mind was when I was dating and meeting new people, which is probably true no matter where you live. But walking around, going to work, running errands, I've never felt unsafe. Today is election day in Addis Ababa and we've been advised to stay home. Am I worried? Not really. I'm mostly expecting the internet to stop working. Even during COVID in China, I never felt unsafe. People followed the rules, stores stayed stocked, and life adapted. Ironically, the only place I felt genuinely uneasy during COVID was back in the United States, where everyone seemed to be arguing about everything. So that's my answer. Finding housing overseas is usually an adventure. And as for safety, I've generally felt just as safe or safer than I have in many places people never question. I'll be back next week with another one of the top questions I get about living overseas. And hopefully I'll have an apartment update for you as well. See you next time.